Time flies. This whole situation is so heartbreaking, so humiliating, so embarrassing. I cannot even begin to express my grief and shame over my actions. A little over a month ago, I met a man online with whom I seemed to instantly connect. After only talking to him a short time, I confided in him that I was in a very vulnerable place in my marriage. And he listened, as I poured out my heartache and anguish. And so, began an emotional affair that progressed to explicit dirty chat, instant message. No webcams or voice programs. There is no justification for my actions. No amount of pain or suffering or disappointment will ever excuse what I did. I know that. I wish so desperately that I would have had more wisdom, that I would not have given in to temptation, that I wouldn't have hurt my spouse as I have. We're just over a week after discovery. I have cut off all communication with the OM. My spouse has given me a few resources to help me understand what he is going through, including posts on this site. I am trying to express my shame and how very sorry I am for doing this to him. I don't think I am doing a very good job. Expressing emotion is often extremely difficult for me. I just keep saying I'm sorry over and over and trying to follow the basic guidelines for a genuine apology. I went to a trusted friend in my church and confessed everything, and she encouraged me to go confess to our pastor, which I did this afternoon. That was one of the hardest and most embarrassing things I have ever done, but I knew it was the right path to take after my serious indiscretion. I am desperately seeking reconciliation. I am currently being counseled by my pastor and his wife, as well as the marriage therapist my spouse and I have been seeing for quite some time. It is easy to feel lost in this situation, and yet I am fully aware that I deserve no sympathy. I accept all responsibility for my actions. I wish I could go back 1 month ago and just walk away. Nothing is worth knowing I have devastated my spouse. And there is the beginning of my story. My husband suspected and approached me with his suspicions, and I confessed. I wrote an erotic story, which I shared with the OM, in which I had written I love you but edited that part out before sharing the story. Yes, my husband saw and read it. We have children and have been married 3 years. The erotic story was a fantasy I had written out. I used no names or personal information. My husband is devastated and heartbroken, and is vacillating between anger, hurt, numbness, and desperate clinging, understandably. I met OM in an online game, and regarding the game, I have quit it and all things, people associated with it. I would absolutely adore to play some sort of games with my husband. Not even just online, computer, video games, anything at all. Scrabble would be delightful. I crave that sort of play, actually, which is where my weakness turned into indiscretion. I should have thrown everything I had into working on the marriage, and instead, I chose escapism. And I will in no way blame any of this sad mess on him. I made the wrong choice to seek attention outside the marriage. I allowed myself to become emotionally attached to someone other than my husband. I fully accept that I have made a grievous mistake. Period. I have given him passwords to everything. He has the password to my computer, all 3 of my email accounts, my Facebook, and here. He can have all access to my phone as well. I am trying to be 100% transparent. I was deceptive, and I tried to deny anything was happening when everything started to come into the light. The day after I confessed, I wrote the OM to tell him everything was over. And I, beyond all stupidity, got sucked into an extended conversation with him, during which he asked for a picture. I took one on my phone and emailed it to myself, and then Photoshop it on my computer, where I left it. My husband found the picture in my email and documents. I was momentarily upset when I found out he put monitoring software on my computer. I found out because he left the installation up, because he did it while I was out thinking I wouldn't know, and I was hoping we could be completely open about everything. I actually think monitoring software is a great idea. I was upset because he did it behind my back. Wrong of me, I'm sure. The other night, wee hours of the morning actually, we were arguing about the situation. During the argument, he said he needed physical connection. I reached over and held his hand. When he became upset, leaned above me and forcibly pulled down my pants, I panicked and pulled away from him, not knowing what he was about to do. Suddenly and forcibly pulling down my pants with no warning frightens me. I fully admit that comes from being raped and that it has a negative impact on my marriage. I met the OM a little over a month ago, and it moved from emotional chatting to dirty chatting approximately 2 weeks ago. I have been long engaged in the game for several months now. I'm sorry I didn't put all these things in my original post. I am deeply ashamed, and this is the most humiliating thing I have ever done. I am staring point blank in the mirror and see myself for what I am, an unfaithful spouse, going before my friend from church, and my pastor and his wife. Were some of the hardest things I have had to do, but I did it because I want transparency and open honesty. I am not trying to sugarcoat anything. I did this, period. The husband responds. I say this in all honesty, but I truly feel like 90% of the responsibility for the marriage has been placed on my shoulders in the past, which is why it has been upsetting to me to feel like even in the face of what has happened, I'm supposed to still be accepting responsibility. If you read my thread, you'll notice that in the last few days, my wife has already tried to spin things in a way to have different reasons to be upset at me. Initially, she justified the affair by saying she was still angry at me over perceived physical slights, which I have been working hard on to be more cautious about, and had even already promised to try even harder when this craziness first started. Before I found out about the affair, since she was still misleading and lying about what was really going at that point, she said that anger is why she was able to keep lying about it and keep it going. These are all things we've dealt with in counseling. And frankly, what she was mad about was a result of her not heeding the advice of our therapist and expecting me to navigate our physical pitfalls alone. Yet I was still trying to accept the blame and responsibility. But to justify an affair? Hell no, I'm not even able to entertain that. I have said things in frustration and anger, and I have not always have been as sensitive as I should be, for sure. That said, a huge part of our marital problems are related to my wife's unresolved issues surrounding bonding, forgiveness, trust, and intimacy. I have realized I can't fix them for her, and we will always have these problems as long as she continues to see them as mainly mine to try and fix. I can't, and love and patience has proven to not be enough. We discussed what needs to happen tonight, that she needs to really start working on accepting responsibility and resolving this stuff, or it will continue to happen. Even if I leave, then with the next person and the person after them. I only hope some of it is beginning to sink in. OP responds, I have deleted my accounts with the game, never to return. I am currently complying with my husband's requests. In fact, as I was emailing my husband, a male friend messages me. I told my husband immediately and then told the friend I could never speak to him again and goodbye. I really am trying here. I was in a lot of fog and denial when everything first became exposed, but I see clearly the gravity of my choices and am dedicated to making them right. Husband has made a list of 19 items he needs from me in order to reconcile the marriage. I am working through them right this minute. Man, I knew I'd get the witch burning here, but yikes. Gritting my teeth and entering back into the lion's den. In hindsight, allowing my dad to call husband wasn't the brightest idea. I'm a human being here, fumbling my way through an abysmal situation. My dad came into my house while I was on the phone with husband, very distraught. He knows things haven't been going well for us, so he said we needed to talk. Now, I told my dad everything that had been going on. I fully admitted to him that I had done, just as I have with our friends and pastor. This is harder than it sounds, people. I had to tell my dad that I had dirty chat with a man online. I keep seeing people here say I'm not admitting to what I did. I have. Okay, so I didn't go into every detail my first post here. Husband did all of that. I never denied a single thing he wrote. Every time I have to admit to a new person what I did, I bawl my eyes out. Because I have intense, shameful regret. Because I am sorry for what I did. Because I am so remorseful. So, I told my dad everything. He wanted to know what happened before all this. So, I told him some things. And he wanted to go way back. How long have things been so awful in our marriage? And then he asked what we were going to do to move forward in all of this. And I told him husband had written up a list of 19 conditions for reconciliation. I was under the impression that the list was to stay as is. Husband later told me it was up for discussion and revision. Most of the items on the list are very reasonable, and I can most certainly see their worth. 100% transparency. Access to my emails, accounts, social networking. Yes, no flirting. Yes, no talking with men online. Yes, these are reasonable and of course I can accept them. But some of the items on the list were flat out draconian and unreasonable. And living under a thumb isn't going to help our marriage at all. No one can live under a thumb and not eventually lose it and try to break free. Chaining me isn't going to make me a better partner. After I went over all of this with my dad, he asked me who was going to be my advocate. An imperfect parent as he may be, I'd love to see examples of parents who never messed up. By the way, he loves his daughter and wants what is best for her. No, he shouldn't have called, but he said I was just going to sit there and take it all and never stand up for myself. I'm sorry it happened. Being in this whole situation is enormously difficult, and I reached out to my family because as a wayward spouse, there is no support anywhere, just a giant letter burned onto my face and condemnation wherever I turn. I realize I made a gargantuan mistake, but is there any mercy at all? I am trying so hard to make this right, and the stoning I'm getting is a hard pill to swallow. It isn't like I'm not trying though, folks. Toss those stones, I know I deserve them. But let's not scorn and ridicule me for crying because they hurt. I am a human being, fallible and imperfect, and I've never navigated seas like this before. I realize this is all about me and the rotten decision I made, but am I allowed to talk about my husband's affair here? Or is it irrelevant? You know, I'm not trying to blame shift here. I found out about my husband's affair the same day he found out about mine. His happened approximately 2 months before mine did. I'm still reeling from that, but I'm not allowed to work through it at all because mine was worse. His meant nothing. He didn't know the right way to tell me, so he didn't. But that's not lying. Even though my not telling stuff is lying. He continued texting and talking with this girl even after it happened until he told me about it. He says he has now stopped all non-work related talk with her. For months. I only have his word that nothing more happened than making out. It's the double standard that kills me. I'm not blame shifting. I'm trying to figure out how in the world I'm to navigate this whole mess. And I can't figure out for the life of me why I am not allowed to bring up these issues because they are in the past, and throwing them at him now is blame shifting. I guess maybe I am crazy like he's told me many times, because I don't see how this makes me toy with him. Blame shifting. And whatever else I'm being accused of, I'm not allowed to bring up anything at all because it is in the past. I'm not allowed to talk about these things. Once again, I have to just shut my mouth and sit there meekly while I'm told over and over again how horrible I am. Really, because holding my tongue and sucking up a lot of pain hasn't been working for me in my marriage one bit. I tried that. It left me feeling desolate and broken. Listen, I want to do the hard work here, and I know it will be hard. I will make mistakes along the way. I don't even know what I am doing. And he will make mistakes too. And I think we both need a great deal more mercy with each other for those mistakes. I have already made the determination to roll up my sleeves and delve into the hard work here. But that doesn't mean that I have zero say, or zero opinion, or zero emotions. I have never said I did this because you did that. Not once. The closest I have come is saying, I did this. And it was wrong. And these were the events that led up to making my bad decision. And I would love to slow down and take some advice. But the advice sure is hard to find buried in all the accusations, sarcasm, and complete misrepresentation and twisting of everything I say and do. Husband responds, I have never once refused to accept ownership of what happened with me and my coworker. It was wrong. I was mortified when it happened. I begged God for forgiveness. And I told her that we had to keep things from being too personal. It was in hindsight probably wrong to continue even talking to her much, but I knew for a fact that nothing like that was ever going to happen again, because I knew I couldn't do it to my wife or myself. We never communicated outside of work, as I don't think that's right. I'm totally willing to do whatever it takes to make her comfortable. I've already told the woman I can't text her and even went further to say we needed to keep all communication very light. We've been friendly for going on 4 years now, so it hurt her feelings pretty bad to hear that. But I did it for my marriage. I also confessed what I did when my wife started finally telling me what had happened with her. She would have never found out. I told the whole truth about it, and she knows I did. I'm not sure what's going on with the sudden pretending she doesn't. I even offered up to her last night any of the details she may feel she needed. The difference is, I didn't continue it even after my marriage was on the line and it was almost discovered. I didn't knowingly lie to her when asked about anything, because she never asked. Yes, I could have and should have confessed it earlier. But I knew it was done and over with. I tried to give her the same escape from her game and whatever inappropriateness was happening in there. But she kept it going until I had no choice but to find evidence and force the truth out of her. That's where the gigantic violation of trust comes in, from all of the lying. Had she done the same thing I did, I would have gotten over it easy. If she just reassured me. She was going to be totally transparent about it and limit contact. I also don't pull up any reasons for why it happened, what led me to it, or why it was justified, because there is nothing. Sure, you could say I was very lonely and wanted some brief comfort at a bad time, but who cares? It was wrong. I've never once said she shouldn't have her own feelings about it though. The problem is we both need to rebuild trust here and stop the betrayal stuff. But it seems only one of us has and remains willing to do that. Should add that if my wife even insisted, I not say anything other than basic greetings. I'd even do that. I'd do whatever it takes to make my error in judgment right. But I'm just not feeling that from the other side. She even already went back on our deal to cut all contact off with people from her game, and read a lady to her Facebook after I stormed the house and left the first time because she dragged her feet about removing her. How is that fixing anything? We're only a day over a week from D-Day and yet deals just keep getting broken and broken over again. Right now, there is no trust and we're trying to rebuild it. I'm sure at some point it can be reestablished and maybe she could be re-add, but this isn't the time for that yet. How is that a desire to fix anything anyway? I came home, after leaving because she wouldn't drop that lady, only because she reassured me she would do whatever it takes to fix this marriage, including removing her. OP responds, clearly, I need to take some time to think about things. I have you all here, some respectfully and some not so respectfully, saying one thing, and then other counsel telling me something else. And I am just so freaking confused I can't even tell what the right thing to do is anymore. Of course, my marriage is more important than friendships. I re-added my friend after husband told me that it was over and he's leaving. I figured I was going to need some emotional support, though I'm guessing I don't deserve any sympathy or support from anyone. I can't talk to my family now. I can't talk to friends. I evidently am allowed to talk to you guys here, but kindness is few and far between. So, what the heck am I supposed to do? I'm dying here and confused as hell. Husband responds, either she or I are leaving. She refuses to take my calls to discuss it, saying I want her to not have friends and be alone. I have said numerous times that I desperately want her to have friends and will support that 100%. In spite of everything going on yesterday, I even encouraged her to go out with her friend while I watched the children. So yeah, no choice now, and I can't keep arguing my case for things I need to feel have been let go to repair this thing. I don't want to leave, but clearly more time is needed to decide where priorities are. Worth mentioning that my wife doesn't even know the woman in question in real life and has only been friends with her a few months. This isn't a close personal, years-long friendship. Not just our marriage on the sacrificial altar for an online friendship with someone from her game, but the lives of our children that have been hefted upon there. Breaks my heart that that's what everything comes down to. Being right, not giving an inch. I gave up a promotion I worked hard for at work because of all of this hitting right when it was up. I was willing to give up whatever it took because it's that important to me. OP responds, I'll go ahead and leave. I clearly am not in a place where I can agree to shut up and obey without question. I mean, I tried that before. Just lay there and take it because it's my duty to the marriage. Okay, I need to think long and hard before I can honestly say I can agree to it and mean it. I turned off my phone, and the laptop is being shut off too. I just need to know if I am taking the children with me or not. I mean, you have no obligation to take care of my son, but should I take our daughter with me or can you arrange for childcare for her? I'm not trying to be right, and I have given so many inches. So many. They are always forgotten the second I slip up. No matter how many sorry or regrets I express. Husband is allowed to mess up over and over and over, and say sorry, and I'm a beast for not forgiving him. I mess up and I'm blame shifting, not giving an inch, sacrificing all I hold dear for something of less significance. And sorry don't cut it. The double standard is enough to drive me to insanity. By the way, I am deeply sorry about the promotion, and I am sorry it came at the time it did. As soon as I have surgery to remove this tumor, I will be out of your hair. Maybe you can reapply. I'm not throwing away my marriage. Maybe he does deserve better. I'm sorry I took up so much of his time. I wish to God I hadn't have just taken all that pain for so long without saying anything because I thought it was my duty. If I could have just spoken up earlier. Maybe he could have just left while I was pregnant. Those who say I have no remorse and am doing nothing to save this marriage can't see me. What I am doing. How I feel. So fine. Also, I love my husband. I was so upset earlier today and about to have a complete meltdown, and he incorporated my favorite joke. Right in the middle of tears and snot all over my face. I cracked up. There has been so much hurt and miscommunication thrown both ways, that it's hard to see sometimes why we love each other. I can work on this marriage. I really can. The dramatic threats of leaving aren't going to inspire me to work harder. When someone says they are leaving, I take them at their word and start grieving. Where I come from, you don't threaten leaving. When you are actually leaving, you say you're leaving. So, all these people who come with pitchforks and torches, screaming leave that lying woman, aren't doing anyone any favors. Now, if you can excuse me, I'm pretty sure I'm going to bow out of these comments and go work rebuilding trust and love with my husband. About a month later, husband updates. It seemed like we were doing really well with reconciling. I had done some self-examination and talked at length with my pastor and his wife, and our marriage counselor individually about some of the things I may have done on my end to damage my relationship and assist in driving my wife to try and escape into a fantasy online world for 7 months, which only ended when I found out that she was having an affair with a married man in her game for a month or so. I had committed to trying to have a clean slate and do everything I can to improve our marriage. She has allowed me to have continued access to her email and other accounts, and had claimed to have deleted all of her accounts in the game, and was insistent she was maintaining NC with OM, his wife, whom she was also friends with in the game, had even written her and asked that she not contact her husband again, which my wife assured her she wouldn't. Well, jump forward a few weeks. My wife was diagnosed with thyroid cancer and had to have her thyroid removed yesterday. I waited in the hospital with her or was by her side for 8 hours before I was able to bring her home and get her set up here. While she had gone to sleep in the evening, for some reason I was compelled to do some digging. I've been having nightmares about there being secret email accounts she's been using to talk to men. Also, from reading the horror stories here, it started to dawn on me that it may be a bit unusual that she was just able to drop all contact with him like that. Well, after some thorough searching online, she's turned me into a pro at it. I managed to uncover another account she had in her game. I also figured out how to log into it, and what do I find but a series of messages from the OM to her. Leading up to just a day or two ago, I thought at first he had just been firing off unresponded messages to her for a couple weeks, but then I noticed she had actually replied to a couple of them just about 4 days ago now, telling him she thought of him often, and only dared to log in rarely, and how she missed chatting with him, but looked forward to the next time, etc. I pretty much relived the initial shock I had when first discovering the affair all over again. I know from researching it so thoroughly now that she is clearly still in the fog of her relationship with him, and that it clearly ran a lot deeper than she pretended. She confessed that on multiple occasions they had even told one another they loved each other. I confronted the guy about it and wrote his wife again to tell her of my discovery about the next breach of trust. He tried to spin it into him just trying to maintain a friendship with her and a bunch of other misleading stuff. I pretty much just pushed through it with the truth, and he finally seemed to wake up a little bit and start apologizing. He agreed he'd stop trying to contact her, though I'm sure that was BS too. I tried to hit my wife with the reality of what we'll need to start considering as we separated, and she seemed to start waking up to the impact of what that will be like. But I told her that's what would happen if she ever talked to him again. I guess I felt compelled to give it another shot because I've read so often around here how people will backslide trying to put an affair behind them. And she's sick, and I of course still feel sympathy for her. She said several times how stupid she was to do that. I don't know if she really believes it or what now, but I guess I just have to hope she's really ready to save this thing before it's too late. I feel like I've done everything I'm capable of to salvage it by myself at this point. Comments: it is called phishing and is entirely common for a very good reason. During your wife's stay, her brain laid down pathways that would send trigger chemicals to her body when she engaged in affair behavior. It's like alcoholics anticipating their first drink. That sort of pattern-forming activity develops into addictive behavior. It takes time to come clean from it. If you are interested in learning more, you might like to read the book, Who Switched Off My Brain. I highly recommend it. If your W has only been out of the A for a few months, expecting her to have broken her addictive behavior by now is overreaching. God can, and does, heal people of addictions almost instantly so that the cravings are 100% gone. But friend, there are still thousands upon thousands who have to go through withdrawal and do the hard work needed to come out of it. God is seeking character, and that is better built from the ground up. You've taken a great step in letting your W know where you stand. Now it's up to you to trust but check. You won't like to hear this, but you'll also need to do this at the 8-month and 14-month mark, and make sure she knows you will be checking on her regularly. In other words, rug sweep in the name of God. Also insinuating trust when it was broken the second time. Anyways, you need to let her know this will not be tolerated. I saw your initial post. Everyone told you that if you caved and rug sweep, she'd start it up again. And lo behold, look what happened. Is this even a problem for you? Because I don't think you really care. As long as you're content to rug sweep with no consequences for her, she's going to keep doing it, with you making excuses for her all the way. Husband responds, I am hearing what you all are trying to point out, but it's just not that easy. I guess. We have children and the thought of having to live separate from them upsets me. Plus call me a fool, but I do believe she's sincerely sorry for a lot of this but is just still stuck in the fog of the situation. I think she just screwed up, got pulled back in by the emotions she had developed for him. Read the long stream of messages he had sent her and caved into responding, letting him know that she's still thinking of him. I'm not accepting that though. I made it very clear to her that the next time she contacts him will be the last. Whether or not she believes me is up to her. But I will know at that point that I tried everything in my power to stop it and save this family a lot of pain and misery. Try to remember I'm human here, guys, and this mess is tough to navigate. She doesn't always have the best judgment or think before she does things, and I think that's how it happened. I also think they both are so out of it. They believe they just want to stay in touch out of friendship. But they only knew each other a month and half of that was the affair. There is no friendship and it would have rapidly escalated back into all the other stuff. I pointed that out to the OM pretty directly and he seemed to accept it. Not that that means much, as he's proven he doesn't exactly have much concern for honor. We had been getting along better than we had in a long time over the course of the last 2 weeks or so. Since she stopped playing that game constantly, it feels like I actually have her back around as a partner again. It's made me realize how absent she was before. We've been spending way more time together, going for walks together, and just generally hanging out way more, rebuilding the connection. This just set everything back. I don't think it's a coincidence the affair started up shortly after she found out that she was going to have at least half her thyroid removed before the cancer diagnosis. Plus, my in-laws pretty much all moved last month, and I know that contributed to driving her further into trying to totally escape reality. I really don't think I'm rug sweeping and pointing out this stuff. People do crazy crap when faced with a lot of challenges. I did actually expose it to several people, though she had already confessed it to many herself. I am trying to enforce consequences, but at the same time, not go off the deep end. See, I not only took her from the affair, but from the game she was addicted to. She seemed a lot more remorseful and less agitated about it since the initial justification. Throwing a fit phase though, when I first wrote a marital reconciliation agreement at the advice of our therapist. It was done in anger and sounded pretty draconian and got everyone thinking I was a controlling maniac. After my emotions cooled somewhat and I snapped out of the initial shock and craziness, I realized how heavy-handed it had been. Apparently, the therapist knew what I wrote would be emotionally loaded like that and had wanted to discuss it with me. Us first before it was presented to her. That was my mistake for misunderstanding. After the discussion earlier in this thread, I did mention to my wife that in order to keep herself out of trouble and from being tempted She may want to choose to let go of the internet for a while. She said that was probably a good idea and that she was going to. Aside from looking up only things for my son's school as he's homeschooled, I haven't even said anything, but so far tonight she's only used her phone to play a game on there. Hopefully she'll stick to it throughout everything I've discussed with her. I've made sure she understood that any slip in contacting him would mean there is no more reconciliation. When I walked her through what we were going to be doing when we divorce, both last night when I found out, and earlier today. I think reality hit her and she knows I'm serious and seems truly remorseful and ready to keep from contacting him again. Could be wrong, but only time will tell, I guess. I know, it's true, and that's what's so screwed up and hurtful about this. The reconciliation was just an illusion if she knew all along. She was keeping open an account in her game, where the only people she added as friends were his main character and his alt character. Plus, the fact that both of their alts were named after fictional characters who are having an affair is just icing on the cake. I mean, after the first time I left, she wrote me promising she was willing to do whatever it took to save this. And yet in the back of her mind she knew she left a door open specifically to get back in touch with him. For all I know, she still has one. But oh well, I've now done everything in my power, including contacting him and his wife, who already asked my wife to stop contacting him. If she does it again, I truly have no choice. Classic self-confess into a rug sweep by the husband. My comment: what an ending. If any of you want to repair your marriage from an affair, always remember, you can't do the work for your partner. If they don't want to put it to work, you can only end the marriage. That's the only thing you can do. Sub and bell, check out the other recent stories and let me prepare for the next one.